Mr. Kusier?
Sir, I don't want to take this too far, because I think you understand the point I'm making. But the point is that DP1 and DP2 there's talk of balance. It doesn't tell you, those two policies do not tell you how that balancing exercise should be carried out, and indeed how it's been carried out within the terms of the plan. And if these policies were to be useful to this plan, then that is what they should be doing. Otherwise, sir, they fail the test of paragraph 1.154 of MPPF1. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Elvin?
I think I've already dealt with that. Mr. Corsair is confusing the role of strategic principles with translation into detailed policies.
Okay, well, I'm sure we're going to come back to this question at various times. There's quite a few name boards up now. Let's just move to the other side of the room. Mr. Lane.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me? Mic's a bit far away.
You might need to bring the mic a bit closer if you can. Excellent,
thank you. Is that better? Yeah. Thank you, sir. We don't disagree with the fundamental principles of the DP policies, but consider that the policies are not being upheld elsewhere in the plan, i.e. there's not sufficient housing allocations, and in particular, they're not meeting the affordable needs of the district. I think that's a point several parties around this table make, and I will come to that in the other sessions of this.
My apologies, Mr. Lane. We do have a problem with audibility, so best theatre voice.
I'll try and speak up, sir. One observation on this section, in this session, sir, is that the DP policies don't make much reference to the definition of a permanent greenbelt boundary. I think there's one reference at paragraph 2.10. It would seem to me, sir, that reference should be made in DP2. But just an observation that given how important the definition of the greenbelt is to this inquiry and to the plan process, that actually there is a distinct lack of reference to it in this chapter. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Elvin?
Since there are no real objections to the DP policies, we'll deal with the specific issues in the other topic sessions. And so far as the issue of the green belt, I don't think anyone can doubt the prominence that the green belt has in policies in this plan, as indeed the exercise that was conducted revising the topic paper. So we don't accept that, but we'll deal with that when we get to the individual issues.
That's helpful, thank you. I'm going to switch across to the other side of the room now. Sorry, Ms. Worthington?
Thank you. Can you hear me all right? We are, again, similarly fairly supportive of the policies. However, we don't believe that the plan in any way reflects the policies set out in DP1 to DP3, because some fundamental issues have arisen during the process of the plan, which means that, for instance, the character and quality of York hasn't been given sufficient consideration during the allocation of sites for development. And this is quite clear in all the subsequent Greenbelt information that has been provided more recently by York, which clearly sets out how sites were initially allocated on the basis that there would be a single sustainable settlement, and all the other allocations would be sustainable urban extensions. And yet, somehow, without any clear change in priorities, we have two standalone settlements. And we don't believe that one of those will provide a sustainable settlement which would accord with the policies. And that was a fundamental lack of consideration of the quality of the Greenbelt, which the policies say has been done, but the background information clearly shows wasn't carried out prior to allocations. Thank you.
So is that a similar point to Mr. Corsier's then?
I believe it's very similar, yes. Thank you.
And before you ask the same response.
Okay. Mr. Bixby, I'm going to come to you then.
Thank you. I'm here representing York Environment Forum, and I apologise, I'm standing in for the person who put most of our proposals together, so apologies for any gaps. So you said earlier that this was a big picture session, so I'd like to kind of start with some big picture stuff. The Environment Forum broadly supports the plan, but we feel that in many ways it lacks strength and that the wording needs amendment. Starting with the vision, the strategic vision. The second section says, the plan will ensure that the vision and outcomes are delivered in a sustainable way that recognises the challenges of climate change, protects residents from environmental impacts, and promotes social, economic and cultural well-being. We feel the wording's wrong there, and that recognises needs to be replaced with addresses. We feel that promotes needs to be replaced with secures. And that as a result of that, these amendments should then be reflected in changes within the spatial strategy and the development plan policies. Just to pick a couple of examples up on those, and they are key ones in the objections that we've made. We feel that the stronger policies required would result in particularly greater consideration of the scale of the development sites proposed. We feel that all of the current development sites proposed are too small to be sustainable. We hear a lot about garden villages. A garden village is a very specific thing of a specific scale. Much of what is proposed are just small development sites on the periphery of the city. So we've said quite a lot in our responses about the kind of scale that's required for that. We feel that the requirements within the policies need to be strengthened in respect of providing proper mixed-use development rather than just being about housing, and that we need to think about doing developments which are self-sustaining and which don't require people to immediately travel elsewhere through the city for the things they need as part of their daily lives. And lastly, we want to see the policy strengthened in respect of densities. All of the densities proposed are very low, and we feel that from both the issues around land take and the issues I mentioned about sustainability and creating walkable places, densities need to be increased. Going back to the specifics of scale of development, we have proposed that we should be looking at developments of far larger populations, up around 15,000 population, rather than the kind of numbers talked about within the allocation of sites. We have provided some evidence to support that on the basis of schools and public transport, and we feel that currently only probably the site ST15, as it is, provides the kind of basis for that kind of scale of development.
But clearly there's some crossover with when we come to consider those specific
yes.
sites, and we can deal with that in some detail. But in terms of the bigger picture, Mr. Alvin, is there anything you want to come back on there?
I'll just say the minor drafting points issues that arose don't go to soundness. And Ms Dilmamo might have some short comments to make about the other points, but of course those coming to get me, they will be dealt with, of course, in due course. Yes. Mr. Mulboy.
Thank you. So just with respect to some of the more detailed comments in the submission around integrated walking and cycling, those are clearly addressed in DP3. And in respect to density, again, other policies in the plan deal with these matters in considerable detail, not least policy H2. Again, the broader points being raised are more relevant to discussion on the spatial strategy and individual settlements. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to wait for further discussion. Thank you.
Okay. I'll take one more and then we'll have a break, I think. Mr. Natkus, do you want to go next?
Thank you, sir. It's just 2 points. The first one on these development principles, which I think we have to have regard throughout the whole of the plan and make sure that we don't just pay lip service to them and that actually the plan does deliver them. And I know a key one of these is the delivery of homes and the requirement to meet the city's current and future population. And I know we'll talk about that on the housing section, but we know due to using the old framework, we're not in standard method territory, which gives us that future requirement, which is very different to what's here. So I think we do just have to have a lot of regard to making sure that they're not just words at the beginning, that actually the policies as we go through in each session has regard back to these. And the second point was something that just has cropped up with all the discussion about reviews and the new North Yorkshire Council. And I think it's really dangerous if we start to nail our colours to the mast of that council in terms of any review. It's absolutely right that it comes into effect next year. However, there's transitional arrangements in place for local plan making. So existing councils who are through to a certain stage can continue. So Selby, for example, is about to come out with a publication draft in June/July. It's enabled to carry that on through to an examination. And with timings, that'll be, another 18 months, 2 years perhaps, until that moves through to an adoption. Rydale and Richmond equally have done consultations, so there's every chance that a few of those local authorities will actually be submitting plans and going through examination and adopting them after that date of the 1st of April next year. And just as a general example of this, Northumberland went through a very similar process with the unitary authority being put forward in 2009. It's a smaller area, it's less authorities. Their plan was adopted 4 weeks ago. So I think 13 years from that being announced was when their local plan came forward. So for us to sort of link any review of this plan to North Yorkshire is potentially very dangerous and not something we should be looking at.
Mr. Elvin?
Well, what Ms. Natkus says underlines why I said we need to take a pragmatic approach and why I'm resistant, and the Council is resistant to any specific requirement other than the 5-year legal requirement in the regulations. It is, of course, possible that a variety of scenarios will take place, but come April, it will be for the new unitary authority to decide what to do with the existing plan processes. And we can't preempt that because the authority will have to make those decisions when it arrives.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. I've got 11:30 or thereabouts. We'll break for 15 minutes. We'll resume at 1:45, and then we'll see where we are. Until then, until 1:45. Thanks, everyone.